Where did my National Hurricane Center go? Got 11 viewers in the chat. What's going on, everybody? Indeed it is. It's definitely showtime. Good to see you guys. We'll get started here in a second. It looks like Lee's kind of trending down a little bit. Kind of trending down. Alex, I appreciate you. Thank you. Lucas, no, I don't think so. I'm not going to start entertaining that just yet. We'll give it a little longer, see if we get some more folks in here. Carmen, welcome. Good to see you. Zenful, hello. Elite Chief Stark, glad to see that you're all pumped up. Let's see if National Hurricane... Nope. National Hurricane Center still doesn't have anything out there off of Africa. That's interesting. You'd think we'd see something right in through here in the form of a yellow entity, but we don't. Not yet, anyways. Lee's been trending down, though. Let me clear that ink. Excuse me. So as of the latest advisory, we have 942 millibars in the center. So he's filled a little bit since yesterday. Let's see what it looks like on satellite. I really haven't been looking too much at Lee today. I'm not going to lie. Heading to Walt Disney World on Tuesday. Please, Lee, go away. Bother the fish only. Thomas, you should be totally fine. I can say with fairly high confidence that Florida's not really going to see anything. And in fact, I really believe that at least for the next 2 weeks, depending on how the synoptic situation over the North American continent and most of the Atlantic shapes up, we should be okay. No, Alex, Lee has weakened down. He's a solid Cat 4. So we can't take that away from him, but still a very powerful storm, just no longer Cat 5. Actually, looking at the satellite right now, it's not looking too good at all. Not looking good at all. I just had a look at 18 ZJ. They're showing something big in the Gulf for September 20th. Way too far out, but I thought I'd let you know. Gabriel, welcome in. Oh, so something in the Gulf. Okay, let's take a look at that. Well, you know what? We'll get into that in a second. Let's see if we get any more people in. We're actually starting on time tonight, so maybe people are fashionably late thinking I'm going to tune in later. But yeah, let's go back to the satellite and look at that. That's not looking healthy at all. This dude's falling apart. It's like it had that burst of energy and then petered out. That center doesn't look anything like it used to. I mean, you go back to when it exploded like it did, and look at the center here and how it shrinks down even. But then once you get to the end of the loop, look at that. That thing's not looking very good at all. All right, I'm not going to wait any longer, Elite Chief. Let's go ahead and take a look. You've piqued my enthusiasm. Let's take a look. Because I know the other day I noticed that GFS was popping something off in the Western Caribbean. And that's when I think 2 episodes ago, or maybe 3 episodes ago now, I'd mentioned that with all these frontal systems and highs coming off of the continental U.S. and moving over the East Coast, that'll drive something into Florida if there's something to our south. Let's see, what do we got? Oh, whoa, yeah, look at that. That's what I'm talking about. That's a Florida landfall right there, undoubtedly. Regina, good evening. Thanks for joining us. Yeah. That's crazy. You know what? Now this makes me want to stay up until the Zero Z Canadian model comes out, because look at the Canadian model. Canadian model has been trending something moving kind of in a similar fashion. And with all this high pressure to the north, I don't really foresee it would really escape. I mean, maybe. Let's take a look at the we'll zoom out a little bit, take a look at the anomaly chart. Let's go North Atlantic. We'll go to mean sea level pressure anomaly. Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of a... No, actually, the weakness is gone. If you look, the Canadian model might try to push it off to the west as well. Because look at that. There goes Nigel popping off. I talked about this in my recent video, too. That's going to be Nigel. That's Nigel there. Nigel comes off, and then in the background, if you look real faintly right in through here, guys, if you look closely, this is Canadian model. If you look closely, you'll see a little bit of a resemblance of Ophelia trying to pop off at the very tail end of the loop there. A little bit of Ophelia, but that's Nigel. Good old Nigel Thornberry. But yeah, if you check this out, this is what I was talking about. Who in here, press 1 if you watched... Let me go on my phone real quick, but I'm going to do a little poll. Press 1 if you looked at my... I think it was... All right, let me just go ahead and put what is smashing. Press 1 if you've seen my last couple of episodes of Weather Center. The one where I definitely started talking about, I think it was 2 episodes ago. I think it was This Hurricane Wants to Break a Record was the title of the episode. And I'd mentioned how if we get something coming up the Gulf and through the Caribbean and all that, and we have a front, the way that the front coming down that's saving us from Lee right now, if we have something approach from the south, Florida's kind of screwed. Like, I'm putting money on that. And that's concerning. Because looking at this right now, here goes Nigel, and this is Canadian model now. We'll look at GFS again in a second, but there's Nigel popping off right there. And he's moving through, and there's our escape route for Lee, and I guess you could say Margot. We have our occluded low over to the north here, and all this blue shading here. That's why I like using this anomaly chart. All that blue shading is lower pressure, but if you look, we have a clear tunnel up to the northeast. That's why I'm telling you, I think we're going to see a landfall in the upper northeastern coastline of the United States as a moderate Cat 2, maybe borderline Cat 3 hurricane if it can hold on. I mean, the way it looks on satellite right now, I don't think it will. I think it'll be more low-grade 1 or 2 before it goes baroclinic and goes post-tropical. But you can see how right there we have a huge opening between high pressure over the central United States and then high pressure out over the Atlantic, that Azores high. But then if you watch as we go forward, this is what has me concerned. You go forward and look at how that gap closes off. It closes off. And I mean, if you notice, Nigel just continues his track west-northwest. And you have the high pressure over the continental U.S. surging this way, and then this one's wrapping back around all that low pressure and advecting to the west. So that channel is going to close. So technically speaking, that's 2 model platforms that would indicate something happening for the southeastern United States. I'm not going to say Florida this time, because this is a scenario that could do... I'll use my red ink this time so you guys can see a different color, but in this scenario right here on Canadian model, that puts from the Carolinas all the way through to the southern coastline of Florida under the gun. And I would honestly argue that this would be just, based on the very tail end of this loop, You see that channel close off. There it goes. That tunnel closes. Shut down. They've closed the toll road. If you outline the high pressure right in through here, right there, that's like a South Florida landfall. That's an Andrew right there. And I forgive me if that sounds hype. I know a lot of people have been talking hype and everything these last couple days with Lee, but looking at this anyways, that's what I get out of that, especially with that tunnel closing off. Let's go back to GFS now. I want to see what GFS... Oh, there goes Ophelia right there. For those of you asking, GFS on 18Z is actually developing Ophelia. When I made my video and I looked at 12Z, there was a little bit of a faint calling to her coming off of Africa right there, that 1006, very northern latitude. And there it goes. Then it finally takes shape and moves up. And see what the GFS is predicting here now is we're going to get a nice baroclinic low that opens up a channel again and drives the storms north. Very textbook, like clockwork, with what we're seeing with Lee right now. But that's concerning. We go to 18Z. What changed? So it moves much further south. High pressure. That actually, you know what? That makes a little more sense. Looking at this scenario, I know it's 18Z, so it's not a hot model run as I call it, but this actually makes a little more sense, and I'll show you why. We'll go back to weathermodels.com. I actually had this up on my last overlay on my video today. We'll go to GFS, and let me see if I can remember which one it was. I know I was in the tropical Atlantic, and I think it was the 24-hour mean sea level pressure change. You go to 12Z. This is the one I used for my video today. And the one reason I like this is if you look, it does a very good job of showing how behind these lows, you get high pressure rushing in back behind them. See that? That's pretty cool. I like that. I like that a lot. I'm going to start using this chart a lot more because that's technically what happens. You have such intense energy in the atmosphere, and I actually made a short video on it today. I'm either going to post it here on YouTube or on my Instagram, or concurrent, whichever. And I was discussing how when you have very potent thunderstorms come through, a buddy of mine, Gabriel's in the chat right now, he mentioned how it cools off substantially after a thunderstorm. And that's because you have all that violent upward vertical motion in the storm's updraft. So as it rises, we know that air cools. And that's how we have the condensation nuclei that form the clouds, the precip. Sometimes we have the collision and coalescence, as we call it, that'll form snow, hail, sleet, etc., depending on, your temperature profile. Totally different story. But anyways, all I'm getting at is you have all that energy coming up in the air, and when it comes back down, it tries to warm. But unfortunately, because it's rushing down with gravity, 9 times out of 10, it's not going to warm. It's not going to descend at a steady rate. So it's going to come down as a cold pool. That's where you get your downrush winds. And that's why I think Florida got smacked upside the head by tropical storm force winds today during those thunderstorms we saw earlier, because we had such strong convection popping off, and those downrushes, the downdrafts coming off of those storms were hellacious. And that's why I like this overlay, the mean sea level pressure change, because it shows as those storms move around, they get high pressure in back behind them. And I find it very interesting that this model run 12Z wants to wrap our Azores high around at a slower rate, and then you switch over to 18Z and it's a totally different ballgame. I kind of buy this a little bit more because with the high pressure back behind them, we're going to see that anticyclone kind of rotate and reestablish itself over the central Atlantic. And then there go our two systems. There goes Ophelia, there goes Nigel. And Ophelia is going to track due north and eventually a little more to the west, and that's wild. We'll have to see if that trends. We'll definitely have to see if that trends. Because that is 110%. And look at that weakness. This is, honestly, right here, that's the key to the kingdom. You look at all that lowering pressure right in through there. There's where our tunnel is. Because you have high pressure surging this way and coming out this way towards the Atlantic while this clears the path. So high pressure is going to fill in where this low pressure is. And this storm's going to come right up. Gabriel, exactly. Last year with Ian, low 60s. I remember when Hurricane Charlie came through in '04. We talked about him last time. And what the saving grace after we lost power was the fact that it cooled off so substantially outside. That was because if it were as hot as it was now and we lost power for the days we did after Charlie, that would have been game over. We would have been miserable. But because of that higher pressure and the cooling trend we saw after Charlie, that's what helped us out quite a bit. If it does weaken, would it go west? Not necessarily. We'll go back to talking Lee a little bit. I know that's a little more pressing than something in La La Land with the GFS, because we probably won't see Nigel start to take shape until maybe Tuesday of next week, so we still got a little bit of time before he's even on the map. This is why I truly don't think we're going to see Lee turn, just because like clockwork, and I can pull up the Euro model as well. You look at the anomaly chart here, and you see this baroclinic low. That's a jet-supported frontal connected low right here. Hypothetical warm, cold sector right there with high pressure surging down to the south. And this is only at the surface level. Danny, welcome in. Good to see you. This is down at the surface level. So as that pushes through, you can see, as I was mentioning with that other storm on the 18 ZGFS a couple moments ago, that hypothetical scenario, there's our tunnel right there. Like if I did not see, if I had not looked at National Hurricane Center, if I didn't know that Lee was even out there and I saw this, I could probably look at this and immediately say, yeah, it's going to end up, I'll use a different color ink, it'll end up going somewhere up in this general area, just like that. Either go a little further to the west and hit right up about, the Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Manhattan, New Jersey area, or it'll even go further to the north and east and go up towards Maine, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, eastern Canadian provinces up there. And that's that's hypothetically if I hadn't looked at NHC. Obviously, we know what NHC and what the other high-res models are calling for, but the blue shade right there, that's our tunnel. I'll use my black ink this time and I'll show you. This is our escape route for Lee right there. He's going to take that tunnel and surge north, staying away from Florida. And there he is right there. I was talking about him on my last video. Nigel's finally taken shape. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's been trending on a number of models too. This is, let's see. So we get a little bit of an idea that he's out there as early as Tuesday. Sorry, hold on. Let me go back to the chat. Carmen, what day is that? Florida for when it starts to take its turn. It looks like it could start turning Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe even Thursday, depending on if it stalls out. But I'm thinking Wednesday we'll probably see a definitive turn to the north. I've recently discovered this overlay as well, if you guys want to take a look at some ensembles with me. These are going to be crucial for when Nigel shows up, that's for sure. But you look, we have a bit more confidence tonight that it's definitely going to turn, and it's not as concerning about as far west or as far east as it does make that turn. Granted, if it does turn much later, we're going to see a lot more influence along the Carolina coast and then further up the eastern seaboard, mid-Atlantic states, etc. If it does turn late as well, the Bahamas are going to realize a lot more of it as well. Just to give you an idea, it's a little difficult to see. I'm looking at what YouTube's sharing right now. It's a little hard to see, but there is the outer ring or the outer rim of our Bahama Islands. So some of the ensembles still want to bring it dangerously close to them as a possible Cat 3 or something like that, we'll say. Hypothetically, it could re-strengthen, but right now it's not looking too good. I know it still has about 2 or 3 days over warm water, and we're going to get out of the shear here very soon, but I'm honestly a little disappointed because I've been watching other videos and other enthusiasts and looking at reports on this, and everyone's been talking big time that, oh God, the eye wall replacement cycle, it's going to explode here in a moment, and that doesn't look like it's exploding. In fact, it still looks like it's weakening. We started the eye wall replacement cycle really early in the day today. It was actually shortly after I woke up. And you see right about there, right? So we're here, we're going good. The eye's shrinking right there. You notice how it starts to wobble around? It's very hard to see, but it starts wobbling around right there, and it starts to lose its symmetry, and then there goes, then begins the high wall replacement cycle. You see how the outermost ring of the convection also starts to dissipate? Whoa, hey, actually, you know what? I see another face. You guys see that? I see another face. There's the eye. Then there's a little eyelash right there. There's a small little nose. There's the mouth. It's got a big old chin. Here's hair. There's Lee right there, folks. We just found him. He's showing himself on infrared. That's spooky. Once you guys see it, you're not going to be able to unsee it. I promise. Once you see it, it kind of has like a little bit of a baby face too. I'll go and we'll draw it again. So got the eyelash right there. There's obviously the eye, little tiny nose, and then there's the upper lip, the lower lip, and we'll call it a dual chin, a dual chin. And then we got flowing hair with that white face, trying to look like Michael Myers, doing a poor job of it, Lee. But we found him, guys. We found Lee. He's hidden in the infrared. But anyways, yeah, so we started eye wall replacement at 6:55 Z this morning. So it's been out there for a while. And it surged up, started eye wall replacement, and then it tried to hang on, and then it completely collapsed in on itself right there. Gone. Now that eye is completely wrapped up. So, and it hasn't tried to come back out. You can see the north and eastern flank of it is really losing convection. It's looking kind of like Idalia did before she deepened up and became a Cat 3 and then 4 before landfall. That's true, yeah. You can always find a semblance of a face in these systems. It's always interesting. Do you think Newark has like a 20% chance, maybe some stuff? Oh, yeah. Newark, definitely. If I were to make a random forecast, and I'm gonna do it on an actual map, so it doesn't look like I'm cheating. I'm not gonna cheat the exam. A map of the United States. Here we go. There you go. For those of you watching in the chat, I'm not cheating on my exam now. Okay, I'm gonna give you my most honest hypothesis. So here's the map of the U.S., and based on what I've seen, what I would think and what I would project and what I've been kind of urging viewers who've been watching my videos, from about the Maryland, Delaware area, maybe even a little further to the north of that, somewhere in between New Jersey, Manhattan, whoa. Somewhere between New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, right up in this area, and then further, let me change the pen color. I'm drawing along the terrain and it's not lining up. Anywhere from this area up, I would say, has the greatest reason to watch this storm. The further south you go, unless we see some dramatic changes in our big picture weather pattern, I don't foresee it coming close. I think it'll be okay. So to answer your question, Maddie, New York, Newark, yeah, I definitely think the further you go from where I have my ink drawn right there, that's where you're going to... Let me move my screen over. I just noticed it's kind of cut off. From about the New Jersey portion and all that and up, that's where we're probably we'll see most of the threat. Looks like he got sucked into himself. Yeah, kind of. He collapsed. That's why I completely forgot to put it into my video today, but what a lot of folks, and I'm not going to say anyone specifically. I've just been watching all sorts of YouTube videos across the web. A lot of people, when they see eye wall replacement or they see a opening, expanding eye, or even a closing eye, they immediately think deepening. It's going to explode. It's bombing out. And not all the time. If you guys were in on my chat Wednesday, I think we went over it. But I love to use the metaphor behind cars. You go to the drag strip and you look at the boosted Subaru with 500 horsepower. A gentleman driving it successfully gets through all 6 to 10 of however many runs he's doing down the strip. Then you have Joe Schmo in his Honda Civic. We always got those 90 Civics with 1,000 horsepower builds. And he's blasting. He's ripping through gears. But he's got 1,000 horsepower under that hood, so something's going to break. He's only going to get like 1 or 2 good runs out of that before he's spending the rest of the day on the pit line. And that's the same thing with these storms. You get up to Cat 5 intensity, especially with as fast as it did. If you think about it in a three-dimensional perspective, that would mean that this thing, Gabriel, I'm going to say it like shucked in all that energy off the ocean and also absorbed the energy around it in the atmosphere and surged it to the point where it deepened so dramatically in 12 hours. It's got to go somewhere. It's the old phrase, what goes up must come back down. And in this case, he went and upped his turbo boost way too much and blew a head gasket. And that's why now we're seeing this and that wind shear. Somebody mentioned earlier the wind shear out there is also not doing it any favors. Look at some analogies. Let's look at some analogies. Gloria. Analogies? Or do you mean analyses? I'm imagining hurricanes racing now. Thanks. I mean, technically speaking, you go back to the model viewer and you can see that these two are in a race to see who's going to get up north first. You got Margot going due north pretty good, and then Lee hits the nitrous and suddenly accelerates to the northeast. Boom, and then they meet up. And this one doesn't have a merging in, but a few other model runs had a merging. Tropical drag. That's going to be our next... we got to be careful with that phrasing, though, tropical drag. That could be taken in another context, too. We can call it Tropical Track Day. There we go. Tropical Track Day. And I'll put hurricanes superimposed behind the wheels of, like, little boosted Civics or something like that. They could be fewer storms but more intense. You know, yes and no, because... This, you know, and that's another big thing I want to point out to the 74 people I have in the chat. We're kind of a little lower tonight, and I want to say it's probably because it's Friday night. But, you know, this year, if you go way back to, we'll say, even January, February, and then through April and May, everybody was counting on this year to be a huge bust because we were transitioning to El Nino. And the general consensus amongst not only meteorologists and tropical forecasters, but even just the ideology amongst the general public was, it's El Nino, nothing's going to happen. I remember, I think it was on my first or second video I ever made on my channel. One of the first comments I got was, it's El Nino, nothing's going on. And then you look at this, and we're already approaching Nigel and Ophelia. We got them on track to hit in the next week or so. Well, not hit, but, you know, develop and check the names off. So what I'm more concerned about is if we're going to see this trend start to ebb and flow a lot more. Because from what I remember, the shear in... I haven't looked at it either. Let's go ahead and switch over to Tropical Tidbits. And let's take a look at what the shear looks like out there. Because I haven't really been looking at the shear at all because these storms have just been off to the races. No pun intended. We've been talking cars. Let's take a look at what our shear environment looks like out there. Yeah, see, there's no semblance of El Nino shear. The only reason we have so much shear over Florida and the southeast and pretty much, honestly, most of CONUS at that point is because of that trough and the jet max aloft that's going to deepen our system. Or it's going to amplify our upper air pattern and drive Lee away from us. See what the Euro is calling for. Let's see. Look at that, though. Look at all that jet energy going over the apex of that ridge. That thing's going to deepen like a monstrosity. Let's go to 200 millibars and see what we got. So the strongest jet level winds are definitely well downstream of most of our long wave features. So looking at this, let's see if Nigel is on here at 500 millibars. Doesn't look like it. I don't really see Nigel on here. Maybe this is it. Maybe that's him right there. I'm looking at this right here. That little blob of vorticity. This guy. Maybe that's Nigel. Let's track it out. Let's go back in time. See if it comes off of Africa. No, so that's not... I don't think that's Nigel. Doesn't look like it anyways. Do you think global warming played a role in Lee's rapid intensification? I don't know about global warming. That would take a lot more in-depth analysis. And I've already seen people sounding the alarm in terms of Idalia, global warming, climate change, when in all reality, we've been seeing storms blow up the way that they have in the Gulf for several decades now. Like, it's never been any different. In fact, we're very lucky that Idalia strengthened the way that it did because it didn't undergo cyclogenesis like, for example, Ian or Katrina, Rita back in the day. So... let's see, did I miss anyone's questions in the chat? It doesn't look like it. Let's go back to GFS, though, and digest this. So there is our system, and there's Ophelia coming across the Caribbean. See, I will admit, what already has me a little skeptical about this run, and we'll zoom in a little bit, is the fact that this storm goes over... pretty much hits all the islands down there. It kind of scrapes up against them, and the model does pick up a little bit on it, weakening, and then rapidly explode. See, that's... I'm going to go into hype land for a little bit, guys, just because I have to. I'm a weather enthusiast by nature. Alyssa Grace, good evening. Thanks for the updates. Very welcome. Good to see you, Alyssa. Thanks for joining in. But for those of you in the chat, we're up to 82 people now. Please don't go leaving and saying, oh, that weather center guy, he's just all hype. He just likes to talk smack and scare everybody. I'm going to go into hype land for just a second because I'm looking at this chart, and this is 384 hours out into the future. There is a little bit of reality to this, not in terms of that storm in particular. I'm not talking about that storm. But we go back to something else I put up in one of my videos, and if Danny's still in the video as well, or not the video, but the stream, she pulled it up in one of her videos as well. You go to CPC, and you look at, let me see, this isn't the right tab. Let me see, where is it? There it is, Global Tropical Hazards Outlook. You go to CPC, and that's when the unfavorable environment clears out of the Caribbean. So by the time Nigel potentially works its way up there with that one deterministic run, we'll be clear of any unfavorable environment out there. And around that same time, too, CPC is forecasting we're going to see a surge in activity again. So there is that. And this is why when I do my videos and when I talk to folks and I collaborate, I don't want to strictly look at just models. Oh, the models, the euro. Everyone loves to say the euro. Before I even get into videos now, I always think to myself, what are they going to say about the euro? What's the euro doing today? I just go into it thinking, what evidence am I going to find today? What evidence am I going to find to make my case about a Gulf hurricane? And in this case, this is a small fragment of evidence. This is about maybe 5% of the puzzle. We have a valid argument to suggest that we could see something. So it's not like I'm looking at the GFS and saying, oh, a hurricane, but then you come over here to a chart provided by another official source and it's saying unfavorable environment. So that right after that would be, oh, you're not making any sense. You're out to lunch on this. So we saw the storm on GFS. We're going to backpedal a little bit, look at the big picture. We're looking at the big picture, the overall tropical environment here. And when that storm forms up, I saw on the timestamp, it's the 24th. The 24th. So according to this, we're into this neck of the woods, so we are in a favorable environment for a storm developing. So 5% of the battle is already won. There's 5% of the 100%. We have another 95% to go up. We have a good hot MDR. We've lost our unfavorable environment in the Caribbean. We can go up to maybe 7-8%. Then we'll go ahead and start looking at trends. Let's go to our ensembles now. As a matter of fact, I haven't looked. Wow, I don't know what happened there. I'm sorry about that. We're still here, guys. I apologize. I don't know what happened to my OBS. It just kind of shut down. Okay, so 18Z isn't in yet. But, excuse me, 18Z isn't in yet. We're still waiting on that. But if you come over to 12Z, there we go. So as early as the 12th, next week, we have a little bit of agreement that something's going to be out there. And that's actually, I'm not even going to say a lot of agreement. That's a lot of agreement already. That's kind of what Lee looked like when he came off of Africa. That's a number of ensemble members looking at something popping off. And then as you move forward in time, you see that we get a huge discontinuity. Like from right about, that's why, again, with ensembles, even with ensembles, and I've seen some people mention that ensembles are the end-all, be-all. It is a bust if you only get one landfall all season. Yeah, technically, but it only takes one is the coined term or the coined phrase I've heard this year. But I agree. Technically, it's a bust because, a lot of folks, when they make their predictions with the hurricanes and what we'll see in the tropical season, they always anticipate landfalls with them. And if you don't get any Ian, I'm reading Zenful. If you don't get any Ians, then bust. But it looks like we could see something forming up out there next week. And this was also trending a little bit less, but it's on the Euro as well at 12Z. You go forward, and there it is. A little less. We'll go back to GFS. Let's see if our precipitable water control model is in, or if we have any of our control models in with the GFS. Let's go here, and we'll go to precipitable water control. I like looking at the control models with the ensembles, and usually these populate sooner. So let's go to the tropical Atlantic. There it is. We have 18Z in. So let's go forward in time. There's our man in question, and this, see, the 18Z GFS has it pulling a lee, has it going north. So it doesn't get into our Caribbean, and it manages to escape and whip out. So that's where we start to lose a little bit of our evidence. So we were up to about a 10%. Now we're back down. Well, actually, we'll say we're still at 10%. We're still at 10% confidence that something could form and it'll end up in our Caribbean. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some other models. See what the Euro has on it. Actually, we already looked at the Euro. Euro doesn't have it on there. Let's go to Icon. Icon 18 Zulu is in. So let's see if we can pick up something coming off of Africa. We'll go to the tropical Atlantic, and that's going to be Margot. There's Lee, still extremely under forecasting its intensity. Let's go to Vorticity and see if we can find something coming off Africa. There it is. So there's something there on the icon, albeit it kind of takes a little bit to organize. And then that's interesting. It looks like a little bubble of vorticity on the icon anyways, breaks off and tries to spin up off of Margot. It's like Invasion of the... No, not Invasion. It's like The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing. A little entity breaks off of Margot and then tracks to the west. And then we have this next one back behind it. So it looks like we have something resembling Nigel on the icon as well. And we already looked at CMC. CMC definitely has it on there. There it is, taking shape and pushing west. This one has it going a little further to the north, but we also discussed this earlier in the chat. So that's going to be interesting. We'll see how that's going to shape up and what happens day to day. Because the ensembles are definitely doing what they did with Lee and the likes of Margot. They're starting to slowly increase their agreement for stuff popping off in the East Atlantic. And as a matter of fact, if we go to satellite imagery and we go to the Atlantic right now, I'll show you that there's already something out there. There it is. Watch it come off the coast and start spinning. There you go. Got a nice little wave going through in the wake of Margot. We got that right there, and then we got that big old surge of Independence Day looking moisture just off into Central Africa. Look at all that. And then believe it or not, if you guys look close enough, there is what's left of Katia right there tracking this way. There's a very, very small little circulation right there spinning. Sunsets on the harbor. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I saw this stuff earlier yesterday. More storms spinning, spinach. Whoa, Katsi. Yeah, we've had some very... It's been like The Walking Dead out in the Atlantic this year. We had Franklin try to make another appearance up off the European coastline. Idalia was just kicking it over the northeast for a while, chilling, kind of just reminding us of her presence. And then Gert, don't even get me started on Gert. Dude was tried to recycle himself 3 times over. It's like you got to triple tap it. Otherwise, they're just going to come back. We shot it once, came back, shot it again, it came back, so we finally took the headshot and nailed it between the eyes, and it's gone. Or actually, I should say Franklin took the headshot and nailed it. So yeah, we've got stuff rolling off of Africa, and it's insane that National Hurricane Center isn't doing anything. I mean, I know that everyone's like tunnel visioned right now on Lee. Like, no one sees anything else. I bet you 10 to 1 if I were to yell, "There's a tornado outside of my house," somebody's going to be like, but Lee, or it's caused by Lee, you know? So, but I'm kind of impressed that National Hurricane Center doesn't have anything out there. Let's see, we're going to look at something else. Oh, let's go to Windy and see if it's on Windy yet, if we can find a circulation out there. And then we'll go to Weather Nerds, too. Weather Nerds a little cleaner when it comes to looking at forecast ensembles. So there's good old Lee. kind of north side loaded now. That's interesting. And there's Margot trying to get her act together. And let's see if we can find anything down and through. There's a little whisper of something right there. Let's see if that lines up. So for you guys in the chat, there's something right there spinning around. Very, very weak. Very weak. Let's go up a little bit, see if that helps our case at all. There's 100 meters off the ground. Still some cyclonic curvature. Go up to 925. See if it's up there. No, just a little bit of lopsided troughing. I wouldn't even call it a tropical wave. It's all bent in weird directions. But let's go ahead and reference our satellite, see if that lines up. Yeah, spot on. So that's our guy. Albeit very weak, but there's something out there, and it's picking up on it. Very low-level spinach. That's if it'll even form up now. Very, very, very broad spinning. Let's go over to our guidance now and see if we can see anything coming. Oh, there's already stuff on there. You see that? Already stuff on there. Let's zoom in. We'll go zoom the AOI in. And let's take a look at what this model does with it. We'll go 3 days in advance. 3 days when we have the most confidence. 3 days has when we have the most confidence, and there's 3 members. Wow. Let's go over to GFS, see if GFS does anything else with it. We'll go out. That's the 72-hour mark. What about 4 days out, 96 hours? There we go. Now we're starting to get some agreement. So Euro doesn't do anything with it in 3 days. GFS starts picking up on it in 4, so that would definitely, that'd put us right on track for a Monday, Tuesday, something showing itself. Let's go forward in time as well. I'll zoom it out, and then I'll increase the area so we can see it a little bit forward in time. And we'll go to 5 days out. Now we're starting to see some good agreement with the GFS. Due west through the main development region. Everyone loves to say that. And then we go to 6 days out. Even more agreement. And then it goes without saying, once we go forward in time, off to the races. And this is 12Z, yeah? Let's go to 18Z, see if we have anything 18 Zulu in on here yet. Nope. Nothing really. Well, we're not far enough out. See, and that's what's weird is the deterministic models, the operational models, like everyone calls it, is moving it through the Caribbean and up towards Florida. But then you look at our ensemble plots here, and there's really nothing suggesting that it would go into the Caribbean, at least not with a whole bunch of confidence. We have maybe a few members right through here, 3, that take it into the upper periphery of the Caribbean, Lesser Antilles, Puerto Rico, and then into Bahamas. And I don't know what the hell that is. That's something's coming right at us. There it is. Sound the alarm. There's the hype right there. We got an ensemble pointing straight at Florida as a tropical storm, guys. That's not good. This wave is definitely a Florida Gulf storm. You know, I want to say that too, and notice I'm making a face. I'm kind of cringing, but like, you know, I wish we could see more ensembles on here. I don't know how to change. Let me go to the home page and see if I can find a way to change to all models or all ensembles. There's GFS, ensemble sensitivity analysis. Is this it? No, that's not it. All right, anyways, let's go back to what else? What else can we look at that would help kind of support our case that we're going to have something forming out there? I know if you go to satellite over Africa, you got a whole freight train over Africa right now. Let's see, where is my African satellite? Here we go. There's our first little area of interest, not highlighted by NHC, not an official AOI. Then we have this bad boy behind it, this one, and then looked like there was something right there that's dissipating. There's something right there. Then we have this that could work its way far enough to the west, but now we're getting into the Middle East, Red Sea area there. So there's a lot of activity out there. Look at this guy. Makes you wonder if that's Franklin. Probably not, though. I think Franklin got sucked up in this direction. But look at that. So as I like to always say, we're not out of the woods yet. Or if you guys have seen the first Matrix movie, when Agent Smith was trying to track down Neo and Trinity after they saved Morpheus, he looks at the camera and goes, "They're not out yet." Hiya, mamas. Here comes Willow, gonna photobomb the live stream. Don't stop in front of the camera, mamas. What are you doing? Now we got now we got cat blood on camera. So there's our little tyke out there in the eastern MDR. Not looking too crazy. Little very, I should say, like a quiet sigh of cyclonic turning with it. Yeah, super Charas or Charas, imagine. There it is. There's our Cat 5 storm in question right there, folks. It's wrapping up in itself. Rapid intensification right there. It's happening. Cabo Verde Islands are going to get wiped out. We got to put this on YouTube ASAP, get 1 million views. Oh, I crack myself up sometimes. Yeah, I think Willow's more of a Cat 5 than Lee is. She chewed through one of my ring lights before the stream. I was actually a little bitter about that. All right, let's see. What else can we look at? What else do we want to look at? What do you guys want to see? Let's open it up to the chat for a little bit. We've hit the triple digits. We're at 108 people in here. Let's see what you guys want to look at, because I'm running out of options here. We talked a little bit about Lee. Margot, really not a whole lot to talk about with Margot. She's just Margot. Shout out to Christmas Vacation. Love that film. I don't know, Margot. So we got Margot out there. Lee's just kicking it, chilling, trying to make everyone upset. Margot Robbie, yeah. I have a bunch of Cat 5 dogs here. They're probably destroying the house. This is also what's probably going to weaken our ridge a little bit. There's been this inverted trough wrapped up in our high pressure system. So, I mean, you could kind of see even right now, even just drawing a path off of this here, you can see where our high is and where the steering flow is. If we didn't have that system coming off of Conus, you could draw a line like so and follow it up the coast. And that's if we don't have something coming off of the mid-Atlantic states like we do. So that's also going to help influence it further this way. We should look at Lee on satellite. Lee doesn't look as impressive on satellite. I'll pull it up, but worried about the storm brewing in the Gulf later. We'll have to see. Let's not worry yet, though, Cindy. Let's not worry. No cause for alarm. I definitely don't want to monger the fear, be the mongerer of the fear. Fear mongereth, feareth no mongereth. I just want to look at it one more time, though, because I get excited about stuff like that. It gives me a reason to go storm chasing. But we'll go to the... We'll really zoom in. We'll go southeastern United States, get to the tail end of the run, and then there it is. Don't think it'll pan out. Do not think it'll pan out, but that's a Cat 4 off the coast of Florida right there. You see my goofy smile imagining that something like that's going to happen. I mean, unless it starts trending, then we'll have something to talk about. Even then, though, Cindy S., even if it does start trending, I still wouldn't go into the worry zone or the fear zone. This isn't scare tactics, I promise. We're not on Fear Factor. At what point do the hurricane hunters go out into storm? How far away from the U.S. are their boundaries? You know, that's a good question. I'm not too sure, Linda, in terms of their boundaries, but I definitely know that they schedule missions. Like, there's no point in time that they know to go in. It's a matter of how investigative National Hurricane Center wants to be, so they'll actually order and get the missions going, and they'll send them out. That's how they rearranged their most recent runs to both Idalia and with Lee most recently. They went from one possible flight, and they upped it. They upped the tempo and rearranged their orders. That's menacing, though. Well, definitely, it gives us something to watch out for every Tropics Talk between now and the end of September, so I look forward to having you guys in here, because if you were to keep that going, that's going right in. That's going right in, because look at all this high pressure to the north right there. It's exactly what I've been talking about. I think the U.S. will get impacted one more time, just don't know where. I agree. Their luck's got to run out, and I'm not fear-mongering again, I swear, but we've been very well protected by our synoptic pattern out there across North America. And that's what I was mentioning in one of my previous videos, is as that pattern starts to look a lot more fall, and we go through what's called transition season from summer to fall, and that polar front jet starts coming down a lot more, anything that comes up from the south is fair game. Like, I'll tell you right now, Scott, in terms of U.S. getting impacted, if we get something in the Caribbean, game on. That's what I'm going to say. In fact, you know what? We'll go back to the Atlantic and pretend that Lee and Margot aren't there. We're just going to use this chart for a hypothetical scenario. If I were to draw a line on this chart right here, that's zero barrier right there. Who in here, press 1 if you've seen Armageddon, the Bruce Willis, Ben Affleck movie way back in the day. Cool, okay, so some people... In that movie, they used the term zero barrier when the asteroid was coming towards Earth, and they needed to detonate that nuke at 800 feet, otherwise it would hit the Earth. This is my hypothetical zero barrier. If we have really potent frontal systems coming down from this general area off the United States, like they will as we get through, a transition season and get closer to fall, winter, anything that comes in through here, game on. That's a landfall asking to happen. And that's all it'll take, too. The moment we get something that gets past this area and gets into the Caribbean, game on. Because from there, it could track up this way, it could track up this way, it could track that way, it could go and do the classic that. So anything that stays below that rough line that I drew, and that's very rough, that would be what my guess would be. Have you seen the 18Z GFS for late September, Canadian too? Yeah, that's actually what we're talking about right now. I need water. The hype is getting to me. The hype's infecting me. Very soon I'm just going to be screaming Cat 5s for everybody. GPS model, look at it. It is showing a hurricane in and in the Caribbean. The GFS or the GPS? Let me go over to Pivotal Weather, because I know Pivotal Weather has a Canadian ensemble chart on there that we could look at. Here we go. All right, let's change the OI. We'll go to the Caribbean, and let's see if we see anything. This is 0Z yesterday? What the? Why is it so old? Do we have... Oh, we do have... Okay, so we have... There it is, 18Z today. There we go. All right, let's see mean sea level pressure. Let's see if it trends because this goes pretty far out in the into the future. Let's see if we find anything. There's Lee. So someone, I mean, you could kind of argue that there's something right here. Doesn't look like very much of anything. It goes in that general direction, and then there's also the other ensemble members that take it up through there. But there's a little, and this lines up really well with what 18ZGFS was saying, 21st, and then kind of works its way right and emerges. If you look, it's hard to see it, but right here, it's just to the south of Florida. That's where that little bubble of troughing comes from. We have that 1007 millibar sign right there in that extension. So, I mean, there's a faint something right there. Let's see if we can go up and see it a little bit better. Upper air. We don't have vorticity on here. So maybe this is probably going to be our best bet down at the surface. Precipitable water mean. Maybe we'll get something a little on here. We'll see. Let's go forward in time. No, this doesn't have anything on here. Let's see. We'll try 500 height. Oh, that's the mean. Let's go to anomaly and see if we see anything on here. This is 500. I don't think we will. But, yeah, no. Something gets sucked up into the Atlantic over here, but that's about it. That's the height barrier. You get a Cat 5, you get a Cat 5, you all get Cat 5s. I'm going to go to the Humane Society and start handing out cats and say, that's the Cat 5. Thank you very much, Zenful. I appreciate that a lot, actually. 6 years ago was Irma. What a storm. Irma was wild. Yeah, there's been a lot of storms out there. Like, most recently, people have been fixating on Irma, Maria, and Andrew. But let me show you something. And I actually got a little in trouble on Mike's weather page this morning because apparently I was, quote, self-promoting. But take a look at this and tell me this doesn't look very familiar. Francis, 2004 path. There we go. So if you guys remember, this storm started out in the low latitudes of the Caribbean, and it's been working its way northwest. And then look at that track. Very reminiscent of what we're supposed to do here, except we're expecting this as opposed to Florida. By the way, this is Hurricane Francis. If you guys didn't notice my search, this was Hurricane Francis in 2004. And Hurricane Francis looked a lot like Lee does now. Infrared. Let's see if I can pull it up. See, there's Francis, and then you look at Lee on satellite. Let's switch over. Looking very similar, especially in this especially in these parts of the loop. Look at that. Very close. Very close. And as it elongates out like that, it almost looks a lot more like Francis when she made landfall into Florida, although it had a massive eye with it. Weather Center Willow. Lee is a Category 3 according to ATC. You know, that makes sense. I believe that because Lee is not looking very good. Lee's not looking healthy at all. He's got a lot of weird intrusion going on near that core because there's the center right here. I'll use a different color. There's our center, and you can see that the banding around the eye wall is caved in on itself. That's not a healthy looking storm. So we'll see if it tries to rapidly intensify again, like everyone loves to say. Honestly, I hear certain coined terms, and I myself get annoyed of hearing it all the time. Rapid intensification, main development region, high pressure, strengthening, rapid intensification. I agree, Superchara's Lee is suffering. Captain Bill 279, Will, that's my dog's name. Very good. I like that. I'm more fascinated by hurricanes than fearful. Same here. Francis and Irma are cousins. They were biatches. Dorian was definitely insane. Who else? Let's go back in time to last year, since we're talking hypothetical scenarios, and let's take a look at a Hurricane Ian satellite loop. Here we go. Got the satellite library. Perfect. Here we go. Let's see if we can pull it up. There it goes. It starts forming on up. Keep going. What are you doing? There we go. Starts forming. Look at how disorganized it was at first. Pause. There we go. I said pause. What are you doing? It's paused. Why? There we go. Okay, never mind then. Fine. Keep going. But did you see how disorganized it was at the first? And then look at how it quickly blew up. Still a little disorganized, but it started really intensifying and finally getting that cyclonic spin to it. And then right about there, and then there it goes over Cuba, really forms up, eye wall replacement, and then remember waking up to this right there, boom. That you could see how it increases its spin too. Right before that eye wall replacement, and then the eye shrinks, and look at how much faster that thing is spinning before it goes inland over South and Central Florida. That thing was wild. I gotten tired of hearing rapid intensification. It was rare to hear, but now I'm like, wow, normal. We're all desensitized to it. It looks like it's going to rapidly intensify. Tell me something we don't know. I think everything's rapidly intensifying now. I'm going to rapidly intensify if I hear rapidly intensification or rapid intensification again. Let's see if we can pull up a Hurricane Charlie loop, satellite loop. This is my boy right here. I swear by Hurricane Charlie. Here we go. There he is. Our good old Friday the 13th storm. It's Jason disguised as Hurricane Charlie. Took Jamaica almost head on. Really potent impact in Jamaica. And then it's going to start getting sucked north. There goes his eye. Very tiny eye, too. Tiny little microscopic eye. Only about like 10, 15 nautical miles wide. Look at that little baby thing. And then right in. It was right about there. Right when it passes that purple line where all of a sudden it turned east. And came right into Fort Myers, Punta Gorda. Rapid intensification. You know, if I'm going to put it in the chat right now just for you guys. But if I had to pick my top 3 biggest isms of this hurricane season after watching it so closely, it would be most recently rapid intensification would be number 1 right now. The other one is dry, dusty air. That's another one. And then wind shear. Those would be my top 3 isms for this hurricane season. And if I had to put them in sequential order for the whole season, it would be dry, dusty air or dusty, dry air, then wind shear, and then rapid intensification. I feel like we've heard if we should all look back at old YouTube videos between when Idalia started to form up and now and play a drinking game. We'd all be dead before we even got through Idalia's coverage. That's why I've been calling it explosive cyclogenesis. No one's been saying that either. It's very interesting. A lot of the terminology that I used to use in the Air Force and other Air Force weathermen used to say, I don't really hear it very much. In fact, I would argue that explosive cyclogenesis sounds a lot better than rapid intensification. That's just me, though. When I hear explosive, like you were saying, mega intensification, that sounds like explosive. Nah, Lee breaking so many records. We got to make new meteorological terms. He's went through rapid intensification times 5. He's like in, for my DBZ fans out there, he went through KO Ken times 20 intensification. But all right, let's reel it in a little bit. It's been exciting out there. Exciting in here, I should say. But look at the GFS model that shows a possible hurricane in the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah, Fort Myers was such a gorgeous town. I entirely agree. I've heard nothing but good things. I haven't been down there, but it's unfortunate. And you know what? If this pans out, and I'm giving it a 1% out of 100, 1 out of 100 chance that this pans out, that's not looking too good. So we're not out of the woods yet. Definitely not out of the woods. That almost looks very Hurricane Charlie-esque because that brings it really close to Jamaica, right over Dominican Republic, through parts of Cuba, and then brings it up and starts to deepen it again. We'll get a little closer and see what the winds look like just above the surface. Yeah, look at that. 384-hour runs should not be mentioned. Rule number 3. Yeah, no, I get that. Like I said, that's why I give this a 1 out of 100 chance of actually happening. But we have seen some indications that the GFS wants to pop something off later down the road. And the Canadian model is also in agreement that something could try to enter the Caribbean. There it is. And at least on the most recent Canadian model run, we have high pressure closing our channel to the north. For those of you who are just joining in, before I completely lose credibility with you guys and make it seem like I'm forecasting hurricanes 384 hours out into the future, that's not what we're saying. We just wanted to talk a little bit about something very interesting that popped up, because if you guys rewind 2 or so videos ago, I talked about a hypothetical scenario to where if we get something working through the Caribbean, Florida is going to be a hot spot for impact because of all these frontal systems coming off of America. Like, I would honestly say, just based on my experience with synoptic meteorology, the further you get into hurricane season, the threat almost shifts. Early on in hurricane season, you have a lot more of a chance, which I have proof. Look at Tropical Storm Harold. The further you go into hurricane season, your threat shifts from this general area to this general area. And the reason being is you have such strong jet activity surging southward, whereas earlier in the year, the polar front jet is so far to the north, you're not really having any frontal systems coming down to kick these storms off in this direction. So the further you go into the hurricane season, your threat area, I believe, shifts. You're going to see it shift eastward. Oh, yeah, regardless, Super Charas, we're definitely going to see Nigel. Nigel and Ophelia, like if I had to break down, I'll do it on a notepad too so you guys can see. Or better yet, I'll do words so I can zoom it in. We'll actually kind of wrap up this live stream. We'll wrap up Tropics Talk, and we'll do this little, in summary, kind of recap using Microsoft Word real quick. Here we go. Ethan's Life. You're back, definitely. That's the channel name. It'd been hinted at for a while. Yeah, there's been something out there popping in and out of the models for a couple days now. All right, here we go. Let's go ahead and do a recap. Tropics Talk. Can everybody see that? I think this is how I'm going to wrap up Tropics Talk from now on, too. I'm going to do little recaps at the end. This way, because the whole point for those of you tuning in, and if I have any new folks in there, the whole point of Tropics Talk, as the name implies, is to talk. We're just talking. This isn't an official brief. I'm not talking at you guys. We're just kind of taking a look at, what's going on out there. I'll make it a little bit bigger. We'll go 36-point font because we're only going to need a couple bullet points. So, Lee, not hitting the southeast. Newark, well, I would say New Jersey, New York, and further north need to watch. That's tidbit number 1 right there. Lee is not going to hit the southeast. Unless, again, we have a huge shift in our big picture weather pattern. We would need the entire, from the jet level down to the surface, we would need everything rearranged. So Lee is not hitting the southeast. For those of you who are still wondering or anything like that, or have questions that you're just not bringing up because we've been making fun of people asking questions. Well, we really haven't been making fun of people, but talking about rapid intensification, Lee is not hitting the southeast, okay? 2, this is going to be another key takeaway, okay, guys? I want you to watch this, all right? Nigel and Ophelia are coming regardless. Whoops. Regardless. That's the big thing. Disclaimer, where they go remains to be seen. I can openly say that this segment right there, this tidbit, Nigel and Ophelia are coming, that I'm going to say 90%. I'm 90% of the way there. If this was a Texas Hold'em game, I'd be this close to just going all in. They're coming regardless. They're going to be out there. Where they go, that's going to be the misnomer. I'll even underline this. That's going to be the misnomer right there. We don't know where they're going to go. Nigel especially is going to be somebody we have to watch because I've seen huge flip-flopping across the Atlantic. Previous model runs way out into La La Land actually indicated Caribbean. Other model runs indicated straight north into the Atlantic. So there's an enormous margin of error. And that makes sense because we're so far out. Third takeaway, we are no longer using the terminology, rapid intensification. Just stop it. I'm just kidding. That's not a takeaway. No, the third takeaway is, as we approach transition season, anything that gets into the Caribbean, we need to worry. Well, no, I'm going to rephrase that. We need to watch closer than ever. All right, so I'll put this in italics and I'll explain it. So as we approach transition season, what I mean by transition season is the jet is going to start doing things we don't typically see in the summer and even in the spring. So when I say summer to fall, winter time, long wave pattern, it's going to change the way these storms behave and what kind of weather we see. This is our third main takeaway. We don't have anything else after that, so I'm going to go ahead and close out. We have 3 takeaways. Lee is not hitting where everyone else keeps fear-mongering it. We got to watch Nigel and Ophelia. They're coming. We just don't know how strong, where they're going. And then number 3, as we go through transition season, anything that does blossom, especially moving further south through the Caribbean Sea or anything close to the Gulf, we have to worry about. Don't save. We'll close that. And I'll go ahead and pull up a chart so you guys can see. Let's do a North America AOI. And hopefully we can get a really good example here of what I mean by the changing between seasons. So let's see. Here we go. All right, this kind of works. Can everybody see this? This is Gia. This is Canadian actually. Let's go to the NAM. The NAM's usually pretty decent over North America, so let's use the NAM instead. We'll use this panel right here as an example. All right, everybody good? Can they see this? John Michael, we just used the wrap up tool. So the number one takeaway from this Tropics talk is Lee is going north. Lee is going up. I do believe we'll see some kind of an impact on the uppermost extreme northeastern coastline as you work through further north of Manhattan, getting up closer towards the Maine area, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. That's where I think we'll see some impacts. But as we go through transition season, what's going to happen is right here, if you guys can see my marker, that's your polar front jet. And then down here, this is subtropical jet. So we have 3 branches of the jet. Some will even say that there's 4 branches of the jet. We have the subtropical jet, the polar front jet, the northern branch of the polar front jet, and then the Arctic jet. We don't ever see fronts form off of the subtropical jet because there's not enough temperature discontinuity to provide us with any kind of baroclinic or good enough temperature discontinuity to form a frontal line. So that's the reason why I mentioned that when we go through the early parts of the hurricane season, we tend to see more impacts down through Florida and along the Gulf Coast because these storms are just going to go west. But then as you go through later in the season and you get these stronger fronts and these longer troughs and higher amplitude ridges, that's where it starts to transition to more of an East Coast and unfortunately still Florida threat. So what I'll do is I'll fast forward in time. Now you see this is still not a very good example because we still have a subtropical high and a subtropical jet running through here, but you notice how the polar front jet to the north is a lot more down, up, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down. No, I'm just kidding. That's what the season looks like as you go through transition season. You start to see the polar front jet make its way further south. And then before you know it, once the snowstorms start hitting, that polar front jet's going to stop hanging out up there and it's going to start transitioning a lot further south and we're going to lose the subtropical jet altogether. And so that's why I say one of the key takeaways, number 3, the takeaway is anything that works its way through the Caribbean, moving that way, bullseye. Somebody's getting hit. I don't care what anyone tells me. Somebody's getting hit. If we are through transition season, especially the back end of September into October, there's definitely something coming in. I'm not going to say Florida specifically, but something's going to hit because it's going to get sucked in by one of these long wave features and the jet's going to pick it up. But I think that ought to do it. I think that ought to do it. We've been at it for an hour, 19 minutes. I'm going to pull up another new document real quick. And does anyone else have any additional questions? Any comments or concerns? The floor is yours. I'll take about 2 to 3 questions if they're good. I'm going to tell you right now, and I don't mean this in any negative stance, but if I see anyone ask, "Where's Lee going?" I'm just going to, I'll refer back to you later. I'll get back to you with more information at a later date. So, Torrance, I think that we will see next week between Tuesday and Wednesday. Hopefully, NHC will pick something up and start highlighting it. But I think Tuesday, Wednesday, sometime around there, unless there's another shift in the model data, that's when I think Nigel's going to take shape. And then Ophelia will follow a few days after that. Do we have El Nino weather? Not yet. But since El Nino is still technically firing off in the Pacific, that's going to be how I slowly shift gears to make this a year-round channel. I'm not going to only cover the tropics. This chat will change. It's not going to be called Tropics Talk later into the year. We'll change it to something cunning, but that'll match the season. And that's going to be something we want to explore because that could amplify severe weather for the deep south. El Nino, anyways. You think we'll run out of storm names this season? We're going to get close. It's really going to matter, or I should say it's really going to be determined by how active September can get. Just based on what I'm seeing in the models right now, I want to project maybe we'll probably get close to, we're going to see Ophelia. We could probably get somewhere around the R or S name if we move quick enough. If we get a couple more storms, I think we'll bottom out around between R through T, I think. Because I don't know how active October will be. And if you remember last year, October really wasn't that special. And then into November, the only one that really stood out was Nicole. And then that was pretty much where we bottomed out last year. So I have one. How many more storms we could see? Supercharged, to kind of go back to what Elite Chief Stark was asking, put them together. I think we'll see at least just below half a dozen storms. I think we'll maybe see 3 to 4 more, maybe 1 or 2 more hurricanes, and maybe maximum 5, at least based on what we're seeing in the models. Because long range, I know they're going to change, and CPC's calling for a bit more above average activity as we go through the back end of September. So it's really going to be a matter of what kind of activity do we see in terms of what CPC is predicting is a greater than 40% chance of tropical cyclone development. Would you agree people are getting ahead of themselves? Oh, very much so. Nufi Kaye, I like that. I don't know if that's a playful spin on Die Hard. Yippee Kaye, Nufi Kaye Gaming. I like that a lot. I think people are definitely getting ahead of themselves. And that's kind of why, if you notice, I'm trying to go against the grain with my videos a little bit and not just focus on Hurricane Lee's exploding. It's World War III in the tropics, I mean, right now as it stands, it's not doing anything. It just looks pretty impressive. And even right now, it's falling apart. So, I mean, it's out there. It's out there and it's worth talking about. Meteorologists are getting hyped up, but, Texas was 44 degrees, which is nearly 8 standard deviation below normal. October 9th, the high temperature. Wow, 44 degrees. Nicole got me. And Nicole got a lot of us. And she was something. Yeah, Nicole's eye went right over me. Same here. Ethan's life. Ian's eye over me. Wow, that must have been really impressive. That right there, Supercharas, is also something that we're going to have to look out for. We'll have to see what our surface temps and our ocean heat content do. Because right now, what we have to take into consideration is we have a lot of good storms out there. Before we wrap up, and I'm only going to glaze over this really fast. Let's see if they've updated our charts yet. It doesn't look like... Oh, no, yeah, it has. It has. We haven't seen any upwelling start to take place yet with where Lee is, but I'm sure we'll see a little bit of a cold pool form in the Atlantic right about where he's deepening so crazy. So that could also play a role in future development. Is this hurricane a sign of the apocalypse? No, thank the Lord. Absolutely not. Definitely not. That's a wide right question right there. Good one, though, I guess. Nicole just dumped so much rain on me and blew a kiddie pool across the street. That must have been cool. Nufi Kaye Gaming, very good. I'm glad I picked that up. I love Die Hard. And despite what people say, I think it's a Christmas movie. And the only reason I think it's a Christmas movie because I love to watch it during Christmas. And we have, what's his name? What is his friend's name? Not John McClane. The police officer, played by the gentleman from one of the shows from way back in the day. Dang, that's going to bother me now. I got to look. Sergeant Powell. There we go. How did I forget that? And Sergeant Powell is distinctly singing, "Oh, the weather outside is frightful." And they're always saying Christmas this, Christmas that. So, yeah. I'm calling it a Christmas movie. It's a special type of Christmas movie. What about the long range tropical outlook on MWP? Oh yeah, let's take a look at that real quick because I know he has the oscillation chart on there. We'll go over to good old Mike's weather page and see what they got going on. Where is it? Where is it? There we go. So yeah, there you have it. Looks like we can get out of our unfavorable environment right around September 18th. So right about September 18th is when we're going to see stuff really start flaring up, and then the entire Atlantic really goes into a favorable oscillation to where we can see some really good development even through October. So maybe we'll have to bump up those numbers. I'm thinking 3 to 5 more big storms. I'm not talking like invest areas and disturbances and waves. I'm talking like named systems. I think we can see more than likely 3 to 5 more based on the current trends that we've been seeing in the models. How wide is the storm? It's not that wide. I believe someone said somewhere around like 150 miles wide or something like that. Maybe a little bit larger than that. I'm not sure. Mobile, Alabama's looking pretty good right now, Gregory. There we go. Family Matters. Thank you, Christine. Family Matters. I don't know why I was thinking something totally different. I know it was an older family show, though. Could this hit Florida or North Carolina? Which one? Because Galaxy Bender, if we're talking Lee again, then I'm not addressing that. We just recapped. Lee is not going to the southeast unless something big changes. What about Mobile, Alabama, the rest of the hurricane season? The rest of the hurricane season, if we see whatever pops up in the Caribbean, that's when it's game on, and we got to put on our thinking caps and really see what's going to happen. What else? Wilma hit us in October. Yeah, Wilma definitely came through. Wilma was the catastrophe in October. She blew up. Still holds the record. A lot of people were saying Lee was going to break the record. I had a gut feeling he wasn't. There was no way he was getting down to 882 millibars. No way. Wilma is still an anomaly, and I think she will remain anomalous at least another maybe 10, 20 years. I've noticed Mother Nature tends to go in cycles. I believe we had something come close to matching that intensity back in the 60s. And then you fast forward through time, and in 2005, about 50 years after, we saw something big blow up. Now we're approaching 20 years since Wilma, so I think another 20, 30 years we'll see something deep and past that record. God forbid sooner. If we do see a little bit more of this global warming climate change, we could see it sooner, but I agree. I don't see it pulling in Andrew. There were definitely different steering dynamics, and a lot of if you look back, I know we've been mentioning reminiscent storm tracks, but if you look back on different model runs and ensembles for all these past storms, you would see that there was already a big discontinuity in a lot of the trends. Like some had it going this way, others had it going this way, whereas right now, like I've mentioned, it would take a huge, like an unnatural shift in the atmosphere to send it any further to the west. All right, if there's no more questions, though, folks, thank you very much for tuning in. This has been Tropics Talk with Weather Center Nazario. We will not be doing it over the weekend. We'll be back here Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I sincerely appreciate y'all checking out the channel, showing support. I love talking to everybody. It's been an absolute pleasure. Lots of good information. We had a lot of fun tonight. And I hope you have a great weekend. 4 feet of water from Wilma in the Keys. Wow, I believe it. She was still pretty deep coming up towards Florida, albeit she raced through. What made Hurricane Andrew turn left so abruptly? I do believe it was a resurgence in high pressure over the Atlantic. Thanks for being sensible, not trying to be a psychic. No, absolutely not. I always look at the big picture. One thing before we close out that served me well during my time as an Air Force weather forecaster was the forecast funnel. Look big and then go small. Always look at the big picture, step back and look, and then close in, and you'll never be wrong. Well, you'll be wrong less of the time. But I appreciate you guys. I genuinely do love seeing the 80 some odd people, the 90, the 100. The other night we had 300. We'll see if we can build it up on Monday, 8 p.m. But until then, folks, I'll go ahead and leave a nice little message for you guys. See you Monday. Once that populates in the stream, I'll let you guys digest it for a little bit. I see the view count popping down. We'll see you on Monday, 8 p.m. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. And I got to end it with that iconic phrase. This is going to catch on as this channel builds momentum. But, ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful weekend. Please be safe. Enjoy the time well spent. Weather's going to calm down eventually, but until then, you can count on this channel and multiple sources to provide you with the utmost best information to the best of our ability. So we'll see you Monday. For now, this is Weather Center Nazario, signing out.